Thomas Jefferson, in an excerpt from Query 17 of his Notes of the State of Virginia, set the groundwork for a new political concept, the separation of church and state. A radical departure for English settlers from the traditional Anglican-centered laws, this new concept would allow freedoms previously not thought possible. Jefferson revisits the history of what was and argues for what he believes will be the future. Ultimately successful, Jefferson laid the groundwork for long-lasting reforms. Indeed, the very concepts of separation of church and state are still essential themes in legislature and courts today, most recently in the Supreme Court decisions concerning the Affordable Care Act. Jefferson began Notes of the State of Virginia in response to a questionnaire about the American states by the Secretary of the French Legation to the Continental Congress. The Revolution was winding down, and Jefferson was governor of Virginia. And noted in Dustin Gish's essay, Redeeming Adam's Curse, the Bible and Enlightenment Science in Thomas Jefferson's Note of the State of Virginia, Jefferson was laying the foundation of new science for Republican politics and intended to foster constitutional and political reforms. In Notes, Jefferson points out the initial settlers were as intolerant of other religions as the Anglican Church was in England. Laws at that time required baptism of children into the church, prevented assemblies of Quakers, made it unlawful for Quakers to be brought into Virginia by vessel, and if Quakers did make it into Virginia, it was punishable by even death on the third attempt. This was the law and prevailing cultural sentiment for about 100 years. At the time of Notes of the State of Virginia, the church had listening support, and about 2/3 of the population was in dissent. In 1776, with the framing of the Virginia Constitution, attempts were made to give some religious freedom. People were to be free from paying taxes that were to support the Anglican priests, and in October of the same year, all acts of Parliament that made religious matters criminal were repealed. Jefferson's argument in the Notes in the State of Virginia was that only through free inquiry could truth be proven. When free inquiry is given, then reason and persuasion can be used to show the truth to others. A second argument is that no harm comes from allowing everyone to believe as they wish, with Jefferson saying in Query 17, "But it does me no injury for my neighbor to say there are 20 gods or no God." Jefferson also points out that Pennsylvania and New York have no established religion, and they're flourishing, giving them as positive examples of the success of separation of church and government. In 1779, Jefferson presented a bill for religious freedom that was passed. As noted in Christine Hireman's article, The Separation of Church and State from the American Revolution to the Early Republic, it provided that no man shall be compelled to frequent or support any religious worship, place, or ministry whatsoever, nor shall otherwise suffer on account of his religious opinions or belief, but that all men should be free to profess and by argument to maintain their opinion in matters of religion, and that the same shall nowise diminish, enlarge, or affect their civil capabilities. Following up on the Notes of the State of Virginia and the Bill for Religious Freedom, Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptist Association of Connecticut in January of 1802. As James Huston pointed out in his essay, Thomas Jefferson's Letter to the Danbury Baptist, A Controversy Rejoined, Jefferson felt that the laws limiting religious freedom were a holdover of British rule that needed to be removed from the new American political system. And he used this concept against the Federalists that disagreed with him. In his letter to Danbury, Jefferson again asserted that religion is a matter between man and God and beyond the reach of a state's authority. It was here that the phrase separation of church and state first appeared, which has become a regular part of our political vernacular. Notes on the State of Virginia laid the groundwork for Jefferson's enduring effort to create political reform. Query 17, which specifically spoke to religious freedom, introduced concepts that he worked to put into legislation throughout his political career. Jefferson was able to successfully accomplish this reform, which we still enjoy today. Please let me know if you have any questions about Query 17 of Notes on the State of Virginia or Jefferson's efforts to enact religious freedoms.